All right, everyone. This is our first installment of our free trial Reflex Pro demo live. We're doing this bi-weekly. This is just something that we're extending out to the current individuals that are under a free trial and gives, or anybody else really for that matter, and it just gives you an opportunity for you to review the platform with me and also ask some questions live as we're going through it. This is going to be about 15 to 20 minutes of just going through a general demonstration of the platform, and then after that we'll have about the 10-minute balance to answer any questions that may come along. I'm very aware that that's a limited group of people that can come through, so we may have no questions and we may end the stream a little early. That's okay because, like I said, we're doing this bi-weekly, so this is going to be something that is just multiple opportunities for you to get familiar with the platform. If you utilize it, you can come back 2 weeks from now or email us in order to get your questions answered, or if you have any particular challenge with getting up and running with the service, or would like to understand a little bit more about how you can utilize it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I have in front of you my iPad with the home screen and Reflex Pro loaded up onto the iPad itself. Now you can download Reflex Pro by going to the App Store and searching Reflex PLR. And on your iPad, it will give you 2 versions. You want to download Reflex Pro, which will give you this app. It's the one that has Pro indicated on the app icon. So when you first open up Reflex Pro, you are going to have a demo test patient. That's just a patient that you can take a look at that has some good practices for testing. You can review the videos, you can review the data, and it'll kind of get you familiar with what the results should look like. Now, this is my version of Reflex. This version of Reflex, it has a lot of different patients in it, a lot of different tests that are associated with different things that we do internally with our company. But we're just going to go ahead and kind of jump into that patient bin. So this is similar to how you would see it on a phone. Reflex Pro does have a phone version, but it's almost like there's 3 phones next to each other in this particular one. So you'll interact with it much in the exact same way. And I will indicate the differences for the iPad version versus the iPhone version as we move along. So when you first open it up, you'll have the patients presented to you, and then you can select a patient and it will load the tests underneath that patient. Now you can see that to the left, it dismissed the patient bin. We can go ahead and bring that patient bin back by selecting the people icon in the top left, and it will bring up the rest of our patients so we can navigate through those. If I'm looking for a particular patient, I can select the action button and I can click search patients. Let's see. So for just demonstration purposes, let's go ahead and just look at some data for a patient. So this is data of myself, and we can go ahead and jump into, let's just say, this test that was done back in October for 2 different eyes. A lot of our users are actually utilizing this for alpha omega detection, which we'll get into in a moment. So the intent behind this particular test was to actually get that to trip, which I'll explain more here in a little bit. The data that you're presented with on the results screen is of the pupilogram. That's going to be your basis. That's what Reflex measured, and what it is, it's the pupil's diameter over time that was read in from the video that was acquired. And we get that data for the right eye, the left eye, and then you can also view these superimposed on one another for both eyes. So very helpful whenever you're trying to compare how both eyes are interacting with one another during a test. So you can also review the videos by selecting test video in the center of pupilogram and charting. This is the video that you acquired. So this is actually a good quality control check. You can go in here and you can see, was the video a good distance? Was it blurry? Was there some exposure problems? Sometimes in exam rooms, they could have like really big windows, and you could have like a ton of glare that could just kind of like wash out the eye. you can see that there is a bit of glare in here. Reflex has been tuned for that, so you don't need to worry about minor glare like this. And also, you don't need to worry about stabilization. The iPad, it looks like it moves quite a bit during a test, when in reality, the screen's very punched in, so it just gives the perception that, that it is moving quite a bit. But Reflex will auto-stabilize. So let's go ahead and just take a look at both these videos side by side. You can see that they undergo the test over the 5-second period. You can replay these as much as you want. You can scrub between them if you'd like to start anywhere. And this gives you a good quality control check. So let's go back to the pupilogram, take a look at the data, and scroll on down. Now you can go back to any one eye by selecting the top slider, or we'll just go ahead and keep both eyes so we can look at them side by side. So here you can see some general information about the test itself. You have the eye location, so you know exactly what data you're looking at, the result type, and then the reflex score. The reflex score is closely approximated to the neurological pupillary index. This is going to be mostly useful for critical care units. This is going to be mostly useful for patients that are hemorrhaging or getting ready to experience a hemorrhage. Like, there's a lot of intracranial pressure. There's a lot of challenges associated with those critical care units in those particular patients. By and large, you're going to see 4s and 5s unless you have some sort of really severe neurological challenge. That being said, we do have these detections for Reflex Pro. These are not available in the standard version of Reflex that you can get on the App Store for $400 per year or $40 per month. This is the Pro version. And so these detections are very helpful, specifically the alpha omega detector. During this test, I was testing a bunch of times in a row. I was trying to get my pupils to give up throughout the test. And that was specifically for this AO indicator, so the 3+ AO and the 2+ AO. I'm not going to go into what the data means. You can go ahead and go onto our web portal, which there should be links on our YouTube page and then also on our website, reflexapp.io. But it is web-portal.reflexapp.io if you want to type it on the fly. And then we also have a number of other detections like anisocoria, meiosis mydriasis, tonic pupil. All these detectors, even though some of them may be trivial, are really useful for categorization and documentation. Specifically anisocoria, I mean, we stick with the rigid definition of 1 millimeter difference between the eyes, which a lot of you may know that there is natural anisocoria in, like, I don't know, 20 some odd % of the population. So here we get into the meat of what pupillometry means. These are the hard metrics that are pulled out from the pupilogram. So yeah, it's a curve, but that curve has multiple components that play a role into it. And they have different meanings depending on the condition that the patient is experiencing, or different meanings based off of the therapies that you are implementing yourself. So as an example, average constriction speed, the more sluggish this is, it means that the slower the brain is to responding to an insult of light. By that I mean the flash. This is a fancy way of saying that. Now, for any one of these metrics, you can click the help icon, which is this little blue question mark, so we can select that. It'll give you a little bit about that particular metric itself, and you'll see it peppered all throughout the application, so we're not going to go through each one. If for whatever reason any of those are confusing, you can chat with us directly in the app, which is a pretty cool feature. Sometimes we're not available, but if you just put your email in there, we'll get back to you, usually in a matter of minutes, no longer than 24 hours in almost all circumstances except for the weekends. So then also, as a pro feature, you can go ahead and plot these over time. So you might see this little blue, it looks like a histogram, like little blue bars that you can select. So we'll select the one next to average constriction speed, and you can actually get a chart over time for the eyes. Now, I have much more right eye data than I do left eye data, which is why the blue line is much further out. But that being said, this gives you like some trendable information. Now I do tests all over the place. I just told you that I was trying to induce alpha omega within my eyes during that sequence before. So, this isn't going to be really indicative of what you typically see, but kind of. I mean, you should see trends. You should see curvature. It shouldn't be a flat line. Your pupils modulate depending on the time of day and how fatigued they are. That's the purpose of this particular test. It's incredibly sensitive, which allows you to get better quantitative information and clarity on how your patients are doing as part of their recovery journey or whatever injury they're experiencing or their therapies. And you can also see these split out between the two eyes if you'd like. Okay, so moving on, those are the constriction results. Again, you can go ahead and review all that data individually. We have a ton of resources on our web portal that goes into what that data means, and YouTube videos right where you're at if you just go to our profile. And you'll also see some dilation results. Dilation results, release amplitude is the only one in this particular test mode. You can do a test mode, which I'll show you how to set up here in a moment. That will be just for like a second of the light being on and then a 5-second total test time. So you'll get the sympathetic pathway as well coming into play, even though the sympathetic pathway does come in during the release amplitude calculations. And that's what we utilize to calculate alpha omega. And then we have the other results. The other results, the reason why we bin them in there is because they're not strictly one or the other. They are a combination or static. So by that I mean like the maximum diameter that's seen, which is pretty much almost always the initial diameter of the test. Sometimes we'll run into situations with a patient where the max diameter is actually on the tail end during what we call the full spectrum test. Again, that's that 1 second light on, 5 seconds total test time. And that will mean that the pupil is dilating and overcorrecting past where it was at its ambient lighting level. And then you can go ahead and take notes in the app. Really useful. They are immutable, so anything you put in here stays in here, and that's just part of general guidelines. You can type in test note 3 and then go ahead and send that in, and it will be registered into the application, and you can go back, see, okay, I actually cannot edit this thing. So you can append to it though. And then you can export this data by clicking export. If it's your first time doing it, you may need to set up your exportation preferences, but you can do it in either CSV or PDF mode. CSV is great for research if you're taking a lot of tests underneath a patient, and then the PDF is great if you want to upload that data into an EMR. You can actually do both of these actions in bulk on our web portal as well. Now, we're not going to go through the web portal per se today. We might tack that on the next biweekly run, or maybe we'll have a cadence where we flip between them. But this is going to be strictly just the iPad app today. And then you can also select delete tests. Now, I like this test. I don't want to delete it, but if you do select delete test, it will give you a confirmation on whether or not you want to delete it. And I'm going to say, no, I don't want to delete that. So that's all well and good. We have our data, we understand the pupilogram, we understand the videos, and we understand everything that's calculated with it. But the real question is, how do I take a test? Obviously, that's the meat of what this platform does. It utilizes the camera and flash on the iPad or the iPhone to actually do the assessment. So the action button is where everything is going to live for you. Real fast, we're going to go through the creating a new patient before we go ahead and take a test. So we can select new patient, and right here, this is whenever maybe an admin is prepping the iPad for a patient that's come in, or maybe it's a nurse or whoever. It's relatively quick and easy. It's something that you can do live with the patient, but you want to type in a unique patient ID. So we'll just say patient 1, 2, 3, and then we'll just say, just for sake of simplicity, John Doe, and then we'll say column 30, and then sex, male. We do gender control, even though there's very minor differences in the pupillary light reflex and the normative ranges. We do gender control for them, and we also age control, which is why age is important. And then handedness is something that we've been working on for a while. We do require it. That will likely fall off sometime in the near future as a requirement, but it's useful for us in calculating upgraded features to show the incident side for a particular patient on some sort of neurological injury because, like, let's say football players, right-handed football players have a tendency to lead with their right hand. So we'll go ahead and say, all right, John Doe. First time a patient's created, they need to agree to this particular assessment. That's just part of the general guidelines as far as digital assessments are considered. So we're going to go ahead and go yes. And then here we have the actual test screen. Now this is my fancy eye that we can utilize. I am in a room by myself, unfortunately. So I can't really do this test live with you, but this is just give you a feel for how this should look. Now, the main concepts here that are important is that you want the corners of the cutout to match the corners of the eye, or as close as you can. They do not need to be perfect. There is some motion, obviously you can see. That's because the screen's punched in. I'm really not moving my hand hardly at all. So don't worry about that. You don't need to worry about that. And then the nose is there as an indicator on which side you should be on. This is just to prevent as much confusion as possible. You'll also see that the eye that you're testing is on the top, which would be the right. We could use the specific terms for optometry and ophthalmology, but there are people that utilize our application that are not as familiar with that terminology, so we stay away from it. Now, it's as simple as taking a test. Now, for this patient, we're going to do a baseline. That the first time you ever take a test in Reflex, it will be a baseline. So we'll go ahead and do that. And it'll just kind of run through the motions, the settings. We'll go through those in just a minute. And then it's going to go, okay, time to test the other eye. Now, you can actually select which eye you want to test if you noticed on the test screen, which we'll go to again here in a moment. But we'll just go ahead and, well, actually, real quick, you'll see that there is a timer at the top of the test box that's highlighted in orange. We recommend 60 seconds between eye. They do link in the brain. So the optic nerves do link in the brain. So we want to give a little bit of cool down time for the other eye. It's recommended be 60 seconds. You can do whatever time you want that you feel comfortable with. We'll do the other one. Now, Reflex in this situation, it should fail. It's not seeing a real eye. Oh my goodness, look at that. So it's good enough. It's good enough to even see my little cartoon as being an eye. That's kind of cool. It should read a 0. If this was a real person, this would be terrible, detrimental. It is static. And I'm actually just quite impressed and surprised that it worked on my little drawing. You can see that Reflex is very stable. We're talking about 0.1 millimeters, plus minus 0.1 millimeter on the measurement range. In fact, it has less than 3% mean absolute error, which is a terrific measurement error rate. And yeah, that's why we're able to get these really tight tolerances. So it does look like that it's pretty wobbly, right? But just take a look at the scale on the left. We're looking at 3 millimeters to like 3.25 or something like that on the upper end. So a total range of plus minus 0.1 millimeters. That's you'd be hard pressed to find even like capital equipment that could be that good. Let's see. You can interact with this. You can tap on it, and you can pinch to zoom and go to different scales if you want to see all the different ranges. And then again, you can see you can see the test video of my nice little cartoons. So real fast, we're going to go back into the take a test. Now, the take a test, once you do it again for the same patient, it'll always be taking a test within that patient profile. You won't see take a test if you're all the way backed up into patients because it doesn't know what patient you're testing. Now it's normal, so you can take a normal test. You don't have to take a baseline the first one. You can switch out of it, and you can also take a new baseline for a patient in the future if you're seeing them again maybe years out. And then you can select if you just want to do the right eye or just do the left eye or both. And then finally, we're going to go real quick into settings. This is where you can configure Reflex to your liking. Out of the box, you'll either have 50 or 100%, depending on your needs. I use this in actually a really well-lit room a lot of times, so the 100% is nice just to get a good range of motion in the pupil. But yeah, you can, if you want to do like a more sympathetic styled test, you can take the pulse duration, reduce that to 1 second. reduce that to 1 second. And then you can have the recording duration be 5 seconds. So that'll get you, that's 1:4 split for the eye. And then one final thing that I'd like to note is the ambient adapt brightness level. This is nice. What it does is it stabilizes the environment that the eye is seeing as far as light's considered. So we're all aware that depending on what lighting of room you're in, the pupil will have a different starting and stopping, or not stopping position actually. It'll go all the way to whatever the luminescence is of the light. I don't remember the lumens of the light on the back of an iPad, but it is consistent across all of their devices, iPad and iPhone. But yeah, the ambient adapt brightness level, that starting diameter for the environment, can be important. Now we use transient parameters, which can speed up or slow down depending on the amount of light that is being put into the eye, but just do it consistently. You're going to run into very consistent results if you just leave it at 50% brightness or 100% brightness. But yeah, the 3%, or you can go as much as 10% brightness to stabilize the eye. I like 3% personally. What it does is it just leaves the environment out of it. It allows enough light to fall onto the eye to where it's not considering the ambient environmental conditions. Your brain's only considering the lower light level that's in front of it. So very useful to ensure you're getting consistent readings, because we are a free-form device. There's no shroud or anything like that. Now, some people do have success doing environmental restrictions with the device using tents or things like that. Up to you, but Reflex has been tested in studies that have exceeded 20,000 in the population and had great results come out of it. So that mean absolute air considers that range, that less than 3%, so you should be good there. So yeah, if you did set up your system for concussion, which some of our users use it for, you will see that you can have some operational settings to play with here. You can include or exclude the concussion questions. They go through things like the Glasgow Coma Scale and then last concussion date, things like that. And you may not need that every time, which is why it's convenient to turn that on and off. And then let's see, you can change your export types, unit of measure, and all of that good stuff. And then there was one final thing that I wanted to show you all before we break for questions, if there are any. And that is, we want to take a look at the concussion CDS score. So we'll go to the pupilogram here, because I don't think we actually took a look at this earlier. Maybe it was on there. I don't remember. But this is, it's kind of a misnomer. It really should just be neuro CDS score, because it's based off of predictive margins around a physionormal person that is age controlled and sex controlled. And this scoring system goes from, we can just go, you can see a video about it in the app, and you can review all of that information. But it's a scale of 0 to 100, 0 being the worst, 100 being the best, 100 being that it's most aligned with a physionormal individual, and 0 being that it is far outside the predictive margins for what is considered concussion. The cool part is that those predictive margins, they are indicative of other ailments. So a ton of our customers and users, they utilize this scoring method for all sorts of things like dysautonomia and more geriatric related conditions like neurodegenerative diseases. So yeah, that's a really helpful measure. I encourage you to utilize it. I think we are going to expand it out from the concussion CDS score to the neuro CDS score in the near future, but in general, you can utilize that in any way you see fit. So that being said, I am open to any questions now. Is there anything that you had questions on relating to the application? We can even venture as far into the web portal if you'd like. And then, just quick, one other thing. The charting features of this guy, not available in the iOS app, just a heads up. For this particular test type, it was all zeros because I wasn't blowing out my pupil for that one. And then for charting, we'll do it with the prior test completed. So this is also a feature that's only in the iPad app. What it is in this particular one, this is a cascading evaluation, a cascading comparison. And then I don't have a baseline for this particular patient, but you would see it, that test compared to a baseline. Same concept as this one here. You'll see slightly similar results. But yeah, they are useful if you're trying to do quick comparisons on a percentile basis between different metrics. And then if any of these acronyms are confusing to you, we have them completely spelled out. They match up to all the ones that we have actually in order in the main results screen. You may see that there's big changes like 2,000% change or something like that. Really what that means is that there was very small numbers that have even a little bit of change. Still can be very large percentages. It's still useful to know, but just a heads up, maybe the release amplitude was actually 0.01 initially, and then it went up to, like 0.2. And then that's how you get such a big change. So that actually ends our little tour. So here I am. Any questions at all? I'll hang on until maybe just a few moments from now and let you guys, ask anything if there's anything that comes to mind. But yeah. For the time being, thank you so much for participating and joining in and just kind of getting a feel for the product. I think on the next one, we might do it just a little longer. Maybe we'll do, instead of 30 minutes total time, we'll do 45 minutes. And then we'll also include the web portal and some of the features around that, because it is a really handy tool. I just need to figure out how our streaming software can interact with those different screens, because right now it's relatively rigid, and this is our first time using a pure streaming tool rather than using a webcam to undergo a demonstration like this. Okay. So I think with that, unless a question pops up here within the next few moments, thank you again for taking the time, sticking around, and going through some of the platform with me. You can reach me at ksluss@brightlamp.org if you have any questions. And yeah, you can also chat with us again directly within the app. You can go here and you will actually speak directly with me in this little chat bubble here. I will get that message. Like I said, I'm sometimes busy, but usually I'm around and I can answer relatively quickly. But yeah, I guess I will see you all on the next one. Thank you so much. Bye now.